You ready? Okay, great. Hey, so thank you everybody. Thanks for coming to our session. It's kind of more of a closer, intimate session, obviously. So let's try and make it somewhat conversational to the point where if you have something particular you want to hear about, speak up, raise your hand. Or don't raise your hand, just speak up anyway. So there's two of us today. My name is Austin Ford, and I am with the IBM Mobility Group. We have obviously a lot to talk about at IBM in terms of software products, technology, all these sorts of things. I'm not going to do a commercial for you. What I am going to go through is best practices, or our best practices rather, and we're going to see a couple examples too, so we can kind of get a visualizing type of feel for how mobile can be used to engage constituents. A lot of it is about the user experience, and I'm going to hit on that stuff too. So real quick, any particular topics you guys want to hear about that are really important to you right now? Mobile applications, mobile middleware architecture, security, anything like that? No? Okay, well this is easy. All right, I'm going to go ahead, and if something comes to mind, just let me know. So one of the first things I always try and do is I try and get an idea of where people are with mobility and such. And so, I mean, obviously, has anybody done a mobile project before? Because this is going to set how much depth I go into. No mobile projects, really? That's incredible. Okay. Anybody done a mobile project on their own outside of work? No hackers, no geeks in here? Nothing? Okay. All right, and then devices. Anybody carry 2 devices still? 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow, okay, yeah, look at, geez. All right, so I have 1 device. I'm down to 1. I'm kind of happy about it. But overall, people carrying 2 devices usually have 2 different operating systems. So, no, iOS, okay. We still see a lot of BlackBerry in government. We see a lot of BlackBerry combined with iOS. Android is getting really popular for folks in the field. It's replacing a lot of the old ruggedized stuff. And then, of course, Windows, we don't discount Windows. We just say, hey, this is something to think about. Because the convergence of Windows Desktop with 8 and mobile 8 is an interesting path for a lot of different companies as well as public sector. So we'll get through that too. All right, so why don't we take a look real quick and just kind of say, here's where we came from. In around the year 2000, we had Windows Mobile, a very popular platform. We had BlackBerry, scrolling wheels, black and white screens, then color screens. That was really fun. Then people said, hey, let's put mobile applications on this. Oh, you know what? This cable's separated. Hang on. I'm going to thread this together if you're all right. Okay. All right, so it became more efficient to use platforms. Okay, this is like a strategy of developing things, integrating them, securing them. And we had platforms for BlackBerry. We had platforms for Windows Mobile. That's when I got involved in mobility. Unfortunately, in 2007, well, maybe fortunately too, we had 7 different mobile operating systems. iOS, Android, Nokia Symbian, Palm, the web OS, yeah, that was popular at one point in time, had a 3.5% market share. Windows Mobile was still around, BlackBerry was still around. We had to think about the feature phones. They run J2ME. Anyway, new platforms showed up. And because we had 7 different operating systems, we used these things called code generators, where you actually have a developer who puts a particular pattern together, and that pattern gets translated to a different device experience. It was very smart. However, very proprietary. Now, go forward a couple more years. We're in the year 2011. HTML5, which everyone's going to hear. The more you talk about mobile, the more you're going to hear HTML5, JavaScript frameworks, open source. Fantastic stuff. It's relevant. Native code hasn't gone away, though. So having platforms is still the right strategy, but make sure that they embrace both of those. So IBM did some great investment. They've spent about $500 million, yet 500,000,000 on mobility and investments in the past calendar year. So we have quite a lot of technology to talk about. But overall, open source is something that we're getting behind. And that global investment has driven tens of thousands of others to innovate on their own using tooling that we can provide and code that we've contributed. So anyway, you are here. You're in 2013. You have open source. You have native code. You have architecture to support projects. But it's all about what do you do with those, I mean, that's the important thing. We really need to think about, let's engage people. Let's be useful. So I just was going to walk through about 5 best practice ideas. You're welcome to note them. You're welcome to ask me about them later. If you want, come see me or Tyler and give us your card. We'll email you this deck, this presentation, so you can have it, rework it for your own purposes, show it internally to management, whatever you want to do. So the first thing I can say is probably one of the most compelling things in mobile. People are going to interact with you through their preferred channel. Some people are going to call you up through a mobile browser, literally mobile web. Some people are going to say, hey, I'm going to download your application and interact with you that way. Others are going to say, you know what, I'm just going to text you back and forth. And chances are you probably already have about 70% mobile user engagement, and you don't know it exactly because that's through voice channels. Some people will always just pick up the phone and call. Doesn't mean they're not a mobile user, though. It just means they're interacting through a different channel. In mobile apps, these are the 4 different types that you can build and you can deploy to. You can reuse a whole lot of code. There are advantages in the hybrid app because you get to mix web code with native code. It's extremely smart. Full native is something that's very popular when you have a whole lot of multimedia requirements, or you want to do something that's very immediate and requires a high degree of CPU usage, like gaming, for example. So, any questions on browser or hybrid or native and what they mean? I guess I'm doing my job correctly. Okay. Next. The user experience is really critical, right? We want to think about how, when someone interacts with me, motivated are they going to be to come back and interact with me again? Well, give them the right UI. It makes perfect sense. But use relevant languages when you do this stuff, too. The old proprietary things, the write once, run everywhere kind of story, it's cool to a certain extent, but it's not going to give you that really rich experience. So use things like the toolkits that come with the actual devices from the manufacturers. This is super smart. Mix it up with the web. It's perfect. And just be unlimited in your user experience capabilities. It's really important to kind of think strategically about this stuff if you want to engage people for any purpose. If you're parks, you obviously are all focused on the constituent. If you're business and you have a particular type of application that's necessary for whatever it might be, timesheets, approvals, purchasing, anything else, you may not have that high user requirement, but you still want to have some degree of engagement on the device that's compelling. So be flexible about what you do and use smart code. That's the message so far. One of the key things that we always say is know the trends, know the trends, know the trends, because they're going to give you the knowledge to make good selections and decisions. Of course, we think about mobile as, oh, it's a growth environment. It's something that people are using more and more. And that's not necessarily going to stop. It's going to continue to expand, but the uses are also going to continue to expand. Most people, when they interact with a mobile application, are viewing about 3 pages, 4 pages. It's very transactional. We're not going to sit down and do mobile computing for 1 hour or 2 hours. We're not running CAD programs. So you have to think about things being very transactional, allow people to get to where they want to be very quickly. The critical factor in number 3 is very interesting. Mobile has become primary. It wasn't always. There was a time when everybody pulled out their laptop or they sat down at their desktop and they logged in. It's a little different nowadays. The mobile device is, usually within about 3 feet of any person at any time, around, I'm going to say 95% of the day. The only time we see people further away is when the device is charging, interestingly enough. So consider these things, think about the trends, know where things are going, and chances are you'll be able to select the projects and the project tooling that makes good sense both now and longer term. And shameless plug, we can help you with this stuff too. We do a lot of consulting efforts. Folks like Ryan, folks like Tyler, Mike in the back there too. Get to know them. They'll be able to help you. Oh, other interesting thing. Number 5, have you guys heard of the Internet of Things? Has anybody heard that yet? Oh, come on, really? Somebody must have heard of the Internet of Things. Ryan, thank you. IBM guys have, of course, right? So what we're talking about is a system where there are different devices without human interaction talking to each other, exchanging information. It could be, for example, sensors on a particular type of building. Is there an occupant in the building? Has somebody come through? How many people come through per day? What are the hours that the lights are on? These sorts of things. These particular information points are going to become the primary source of data consumption across the internet over the next 5 years. Mobile is amazing because it allows you to, one, be part of the Internet of Things, two, grab that information as you want it when you want it, and three, of course, be able to take that information, distill it down, and understand it wherever you are, and then make good decisions with it. It's pretty common sense, but it's something to kind of, we have to think it through. How does it play into our use case? When we go for funding, what kind of ROI does this turn to us? How do we get more value from more information? So the key thing to doing a mobile project on especially a state level, local level, very important as well. Healthcare, super important. Financial services, super important. Have a supporting architecture. This way you can integrate with different components and systems that you may already want to talk to, but you also get a security layer. And you can leverage that security layer to talk to other security layers. For example, if you have a particular component or an appliance, and you'd like to run some sort of, I don't want to geek out too far, but if you need to have SAML or Kerberos or something like that, you can put this together with the correct architecture behind you. And then the application can be controlled too. If somebody retires and they take their device with them, cool, that's fine. Let's just remote disable the application. We don't necessarily have to remote disable the entire device. Just let them take the device with them. It's an iPhone. It's not worth much to us after 2 years of use. So you can call the application to disable it, but you can also call the application to update it. You can do hard update request, soft update request. You can do push notifications. All this communication between the data source and an application type server and the mobile device happens with an architecture. So very smart. There aren't a lot of great architectures for mobility. You want to look at ones that install within your existing environment. Java is very popular, Java servers. For example, IBM will support Tomcat if you're an open source license user. It will also support the WebSphere application server. So these Java environments can be very easy to install things on. This isn't like a 6-month installation. So think about that when you're looking around and shopping around. All right. So Tyler, I'm trying to advance one here, and it's hanging up for me. Can you give me a hand for a sec? Super, okay, thanks. Okay, so one of the things that everybody pretty much already knows, especially if you're involved in web projects, is user insight, understanding what people are doing, how they're doing it. It makes perfect sense. You can leverage this in mobility also. Whether you're using something that's an insight product from a particular company, or you're using freeware or whatever, just analyze the data, understand what's happening out there with the usage. Additionally, this can be used for QA processes too. What screens are people not passing through? Oh, that's interesting. Everybody hangs up in the same screen. I think we might want to go back to QA. Or if you want to have business justification for additional funding to continue to develop a new part of your application, grab the data. The user insight stuff is going to help you do that. You'll be able to find all your traffic numbers, usage, the rest of it. It's going to help a lot for justification. Any questions on everything so far? Nothing. Wow, okay. All right. Well, I have some questions then. Does anybody here already use user insight applications? Yeah, kind of. All right. Which ones do you guys use out of curiosity? Google Analytics. Okay. Yeah, the freeware. Very nice. Has anybody heard of a product called Tea Leaf before? No? Okay, this is a new thing too. Tea Leaf has been around for a long time for the web. It's like TiVo. You can do instant replay of user sessions. Very, very smart product. That is being made for mobile now also. So you can literally see somebody going through your application experience, and you can replay it back like in a video file for that matter, and see exactly what they did. So these types of tuning for user behavior and this tooling is really getting advanced now. So I would consider looking at that in conjunction with whichever type of architecture and platform and development environments you're looking at too. Okay? Tyler, how'd you get it to advance? Using the keys. Okay, use the arrow from there. Alrighty. So Tyler is very smart. He uses a Macintosh computer. I, of course, was issued a PC. We'll talk about that some other time. Alrighty. I figured a couple examples would be a really good idea before we switch topics up. One of the things I'd like to do is, because it's public sector and we really want to focus on things at the state level, I figured we'd just discuss a couple of examples. One is from the state of Virginia. This is an employee interaction application. So we often call this, B2E, right? So what happens is you have state employees that have regular work processes. They have applications that you've already invested in, and you want to get more usage out of those applications. Make them more convenient, okay? So the things to think about though when you do this, security is a really big priority, as well as the capability to use the application in an almost achievable steady signal environment, or a very low signal environment, or a no signal environment. Because as they found in Virginia, people do commute to the jobs. Not every Virginia state employee lives in Virginia. Some of them take the train. Trains go through tunnels, bridges, fields. There's no Wi-Fi coverage in every single train yet. So it's difficult. What they want to do is make the application, unlike the desktop type application, usable over the mobile device in any signal environment. It's a common sense type of thing, but you have to think this stuff through because not every application is going to give you offline usage capability. Security was the key component in doing that. Securing data locally on the device and being able to work with that data or even create new data, and then upon signal being re-achieved, sync that data and do it in a way that didn't block the user from their experience and continued to give a positive type of, I guess you could call it like reaction speed when you're actually using the device itself. So it's really smart the way that they did this with encrypting the cache locally on the device. They used our product and tooling, yay, thank you very much IBM. But the overall end result has people being able to do things they're not able to do on the desktop with SaaS-based software, which requires a constant internet type connection. How about one more example here, and then Tyler, we'll flip over to you. Actually, two more, I think. So this is really cool because I think everybody in this room's been a student at one point in time or another. And if you've ever been through a community college or a regular college, registering for classes is just, it's no fun. Nobody really enjoys standing in line or waiting for their time to call in or having to be tied to a desktop at a particular hour of the day. So Georgia University System said, oh my gosh, why don't we try and do a study and see if it actually makes sense financially for students to do that over mobile devices. Well, it does, and it did. And so they kicked off a project to enable people to register for classes over the mobile device. And that's just one initial function of the application. They're going to add a whole lot more. They've got a whole roadmap in front of them now. But the thing is, they found that it was actually fruitful for them to enable the students to register this way, instead of having people stand in line, come to particular locations, call it in. It was more cost effective overall. So it's a very smart idea. And I'd love to see the UC system do that too. But at some point in time, after we have a couple more examples, I think we'll get the right amount of attention there. Okay, so one more. And this is a private example, of course, private sector, and it's from Capital One. And Capital One, if everybody knows, the venture card, Alec Baldwin, the guys from the Viking days, right, it is that brand. All their stuff that faces customers is built on the IBM Worklight platform. They chose it for the architecture, they chose it for the open source development and native code development enablement, and the way it's all fit together, when they have a problem, they call one person. They don't have to call procurement up and say, oh my gosh, how's our open source license today? Or how's this thing? And how's that thing? No, they just call IBM. Did you guys get this fixed? Yeah? Great, thank you. Do you have this new feature? You do? Thank you. Overall, they have about, I'm going to say right now, 15% of all transactions at Capital One are through mobile channels. They're expecting about 30 to 40% of all transactions in the next 24 months. So this bank is moving from what you would call an internet bank to a mobile bank, interestingly enough. 2 years from there, they didn't give us projections, but they said mobile is not going to be less important. So you can understand that the focus on people who are everywhere, doing all kinds of things at any time, and being able to access those folks and allowing them to access you has become the second highest priority at this particular bank. The first one, of course, is stationary engagement. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to share with you right now. Tyler has some other great stuff here. Any questions? Any things you want to address? No? Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, and we'll give Tyler his time.
Fantastic. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Is it? Thanks, Austin. I appreciate that. Great best practices that Austin went over with us. What I'd like to do is I'm going to return to one of the slides that he put up, and we're going to drill down now and talk about one of the trends that we see in the market and how we think companies should be looking at this trend, and what does this trend mean for your organizations, especially in the public sector when you're dealing with many citizens and constituents and whatnot. What does that mean? And that is the trend of the experiences must be consistent across all channels. Okay? And we'll get into what we mean by that even more, but that's where we're going to dive into for the last part of this particular session. As Austin said, we're both from IBM. IBM offers a wide variety of mobile solutions, from the architecture that Austin talked about, to mobile device management, to content management around the mobile space. IBM offers a very broad depth of mobile solutions for your organization. So whatever your mobility strategy is or what you're looking at, please approach us. Let us talk to you about that. Let us help you with that. Okay. Well, all mobile sessions that you attend today have to have some type of statistics with them, right? And so here are my statistics. So the first one Austin talked about a little bit. 90% of mobile users keep their device within arm length 100% of the time. So not to call all of us out, but is that true? You keep your mobile device with you? Yeah. I do. I'll be the first one to raise my hand. I'm not sure that's healthy, right? I'm not saying that's healthy, but I do it, right? What's that? The alarm clock, yeah. The alarm clock turns into turn my alarm off. Oh, I wonder if I got an email, right? Is that anybody else? Yeah, absolutely, exactly. So, but that goes to usage patterns, right? As Austin talked about too, mobile is becoming a first primary source of how we interact with one another, or we interact with data and content and applications. So that's an important thing to think about as we think about how we're interacting with citizens and constituents and whatnot. The second two kind of go together. 10 billion devices, mobile connected devices by the year 2020. And then the other statistic is 80% of the world, population of the world will have a mobile device in 5 years. And these statistics probably are accelerated. But does anybody know how many people are on the planet today? Last year we just passed how many people? 7 billion. 7 billion on the planet. So 7 billion people, right? 10 billion devices. 80% of that, it kind of comes out to, if you do the math, if you think through it, it's almost 2 point something devices per person on the planet. 2 point something, devices per person on the planet. That gets very interesting, again, at how you interact and use these channels to do what you need to do. Down along the bottom kind of supports that. 50% of laptop owners also own a smartphone, right? Laptop owners also own a tablet, Smartphone owners also use a tablet. 1 in 10 connected U.S. adults owns a tablet. They own a smartphone, and they own a laptop. Okay? So it becomes interesting. And the internet-connected devices outnumber the people in the United States. So we're outnumbered by devices already. So I see some people in the audience shaking your head, right? And I hope that at this point you're thinking about how you use mobile or these devices or interactions together as you go about your either job or your daily business. To add to that, we see in people accessing the web that the access to the web, right, to the data, is quickly becoming fragmented. You can see the tablet and the mobile growing and the PC decreasing. Okay? But we don't see that the PC going completely away. We just see that it is now fragmenting. Okay? And that becomes interesting too. Right? It means people are communicating with us and accessing our services, our applications, our content, right, through multiple devices. Again, that becomes very important as we look at some of the challenges that we face. So what's the result in all this? All this big mobile growth, all these things that we've done coming about. Well, the result of this is the expectations of users, of us, right, in this room, are very different, right? We expect what we have labeled these ubiquitous experiences. I expect to have an experience with the organization that I'm trying to work with or communicate with. I expect to have that experience anytime, anywhere, on any device. Right? That is my expectation. I should be able to choose the form in which I have that experience through as a user. As an organization providing those experiences, you want to reach as many customers, constituents, citizens as you can through the different services that you provide. So these ubiquitous experiences, providing these experiences anytime, anywhere. This is a very simple chart, and I see people's heads shaking on it already, but I call it the old, the new, and the now. Right? The old, does anybody remember when you had one computer and it sat at your desk, and when you went home, you turned it off, and that was it for the day? Does anybody remember those days? Yeah. And then, you know, the cell phone, the Blackberries, and everything else came into play. So you had now maybe a laptop, and you had a smartphone, right? Those were good days too, right? But we're even past that now. Okay? Now we're one to many. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions and see if we as a sampling here in this group compared to the statistics that we see in the market. So how many people, if you think in your daily life, either work or just at home, and I want you to, you have to kind of think and count these devices, but how many people have 5 devices, let's say 4 devices that are connected to the internet? Do we have 4? Yeah, nice. How many people have 8? Go ahead, I'm going to raise my hand too. You're not alone. Don't be ashamed of it. Both. Anything that's connected. Okay? How many people have more than 10 devices connected? All right? We are a multi-channel, multi-connected society. We really are. How many people today have their smartphone with them? Yeah, everybody's hand going. How many people have a tablet with them? How many people have their laptop with them? Yeah, right? Again, we carry all these devices. Now, will we get to a day where we don't carry all these devices? Could, yeah, right? But today, statement in time, we carry multiple devices. We work on multiple devices. Statistics show us that, in fact, I was just listening the other day to the lady that runs NBC Sports for the Olympics. And they found that the more somebody would sit and watch the Olympics on TV, they would use their tablet while they were doing that. So it's not only you're using multiple devices, but you're using them at the same time. And the people that would watch TV and use their tablet would actually watch more TV, would drive their primetime channel viewage up, which was interesting. So they're not finding that these channels are replacing one another, they're augmenting one another. Okay? So what does that mean for us? What does that mean for What does that mean for the public sector? What does that mean for government? Well, these are our constituents, right? This is how people want to communicate with us. So how do we reach them in those types of those ways? Okay? So some things that kind of the outcome of all this comes to, how do I reach as many customers as possible with rich and engaging experiences, right? How do I respond quickly to either market-changing needs or some type of changing need that happens that I need to react quickly to with my citizens or my constituents? And how do I create, manage, and reuse content across these channels, right? I know I have to cast the broadest net that I would like to reach as many customers, but how can I reuse some of that content across those different channels? Okay. And this is going to be a little plug for IBM, but IBM offers a portfolio that allows us to do exactly that. It allows us to easily create content and experiences for multi-channel use. Okay? We have very deep skills and capabilities within integration of components together. If you look at from a public sector, the services that you offer to your constituents, your citizens, right? They're a conglomeration, most of the time they're conglomerations of different back-end systems, right? Coming together to create one experience for the user. How do you take that experience that is full of different back-end systems, and how do you take that to a mobile experience? Right? How do you take that to a multi-channel experience? And IBM has the capability to do that. And that's optimize and gather into one user interface. And then the very upper, I guess for you would be the upper right-hand side is an interesting concept to deliver highly personalized and targeted experiences. Users today are expecting content. If any of you remember the old Burger King, I want it my way type of thing, that's how they want content. That's how they want these experiences today. That's what we expect. I want that my way. And to be able to do that, you've got to know something about the user. We talked about Tea Leaf, right? IBM offers other analytics packages like Core Metrics and Unica that allows to do data-driven, customized, targeted experiences to users. And again, as you're going across channel, you want to target that information to the person that is requesting it, not only from a device standpoint, but also from a user standpoint. A couple of examples in the public sector that use our platform to do this. One is the Miami-Dade County portal for smarter government. Miami-Dade County uses our infrastructure to be able to bring all these back-end systems together into one targeted user interface, be able to customize that as a user, and to be able to get access to and acquire the right services for who I am. So it's a very targeted environment. They're also in the process of taking this and now saying, okay, what services now need to go mobile? And how are we going to take that to the mobile channel, both from a tablet perspective and from a phone perspective? So we'll see we're in the process of working with them going forward on that. So Miami-Dade County. The other one that I thought I would show is the city of Helsinki. It was rated their #1 municipal experience in Europe. Again, it's an experience that allows somebody to log in and access services and access everything that has to do with the city that they would need, both from maybe a tourist perspective and also from a person that is living there perspective, and be able to interact and communicate with the city. These experiences are also multi-channel experiences, so as they are driven from different devices, the experience is optimized for those devices. So a couple of examples from a public sector of what we're doing. I thought I'd take the last part of the session here and just go through maybe 3 or 4 areas that we recommend from an IBM perspective on best practices when you're looking at creating these multi-channel experiences. Okay, and the first one is, we all know that content is dynamic, right? content does not stay the same for a long period of time anymore, okay? So as organizations look to provide content to a mobile channel, right, the same applies. Probably even applies more because we are expecting, like Austin said, it's very transactional. I'm not out there on my smartphone for very long doing long transactions. So content is always refreshed. It's always anew, or it's expected to be the latest and greatest. Well, from an organizational standpoint, how do you create that content? How do you update that content? Who creates that content? Who owns the content? And how, from a mobile, either mobile web or mobile application standpoint, how do I rapidly update it? And by the way, I just don't want anybody to update it. I want the subject matter expert to update it, right? And I want to have some type of approval before it's updated. But what I want to try to avoid is going back to my IT department every time I need to update my content in my applications. Okay, so how do we do that? So there's the ability from an IBM standpoint, in our solution, there's ability to allow line of business users to update content very easily through templated forms, inline editing, and create these rich content experiences that can be simultaneously pushed to your desktop experience, to your mobile web experience, and to your mobile application experience, right? All seamlessly from one content repository. What does that do? Well, it empowers the people that know the content and own the content to be able to create the content. It allows you to adapt quickly to either to market needs, to business needs, to the needs of the city in this case, right? It allows you to create these things, these experiences once and actually push them to a variety of different channels. And that can save time and money and productivity. We talked about integration a little bit. So another point that I wanted to touch on here is that type of integration. Again, these experiences that you're giving your constituents are more than likely made up from a variety of back-end systems. How do I create those experiences, even from a mobile standpoint, that is a experience that brings all this together, that is targeted to who I am, and maybe as a citizen or employee? And then how does the data work together to provide that contextual, personalized experience? What that does is that drives, the personalization point of it drives the engagement with the user. It drives loyalty from the user. It drives consistency across devices. It allows you to reuse components that you've had in the past to your mobile channel. But the ability to bring all these things together from a single sign-on standpoint to a mobile channel is an important area to look at as you look at delivering multi-channel experiences. And then the next step in personalization, to be able to know who's accessing from what device and provide them the best experience for that person, right? The have it your way type of mentality. Being able to customize to a certain extent my experience as I interact with the different services that you provide and offer. So whether I am an employee logging in and using these applications, these mobile experiences, what experience do I get versus a constituent that logs in that might get a different experience? But all driven from the same framework, all driven from the same platform, all driven from the same, to a certain extent, content and personalization that the framework provides. And then the last thing is being able to take those and deliver those to the right form factor and the right channel. So taking all that, delivering it to your web channel, from your mobile web standpoint and from a mobile application standpoint, being able to have one layer that manages all that, and then depending on how the user chooses to interact with you, you can deliver those personalized experiences. So for example, let's say that I have a website that I provide services on from a public services standpoint. Well, somebody might hit that from their tablet. I don't have my tablet up here, but from their tablet. Okay, they might hit it from their cell phone. They might hit it from their desktop. right? Well, each one of those avenues, we should be able to provide the experience that that device gives you, right? So there's more I can do on a tablet than a smartphone. But the actual experience should be smart enough to say, hey, I'm residing on a smartphone or a tablet here. This is what I should be able to give the user, okay? Now you take that to the next level. If I'm using, and again, another plug for IBM here, shameless plug for IBM, but if I'm using IBM Worklight, that infrastructure, right, now I have access to native applications. So not only can I give a website and a mobile web experience, but now I have a mobile app that can be delivered through app stores. It can be installed on a device. And once it's installed on a device, a whole new world opens up to me. Right? I can actually use now things that are on the device, such as camera, such as accelerometer, such as secure offline storage. That is now an application that can be managed by, Austin talked about it earlier, by the device, by the application management. It can be managed by an MDM solution, right? But again, it all boils back down to, it's all driven by the same content, personalization, and everything else that I've used across my channels. Okay, so that becomes the bigger, broader picture as we talk about these as solutions. A couple of technologies that I would recommend that you look at as you look at delivering multi-channel experiences. One is what is called responsive web design. Is anybody familiar with responsive web design? Anybody using responsive web design right now? How's it going? Do you mind me asking?
Well, we're redesigning our website, so we're moving towards that.
Very good. So for those of you that aren't familiar with responsive web design is a technique that allows you to create web experiences that are smart enough to understand what screen screen size that you're working on, and allows you to, it dynamically formats itself to take advantage of that screen size. They do it through what are called media queries, and it's all open technology, so it's media queries, it's CSS, it's HTML5. This is a big movement right now, and when we talk about, Austin talked about, when we talk about mobile, we're talking about a lot about HTML5. Well, this is the next, this is one of the applications that the way that people are using HTML5 and CSS3 is responsive web design. If you want more information on it, come talk to us or look it up, but I suggest that you look into it, right? It's an exciting area. This is an example of what would happen. So you see the site in the middle. You see that same site hit from different devices, right? The CSS and everything else smart enough to know I have this much real estate. I'm going to format things different. I'm going to organize things different very quickly. Okay? And then my last slide here as we wrap it up for the multi-channel part of this is that we believe that a complete mobile strategy is looking at it from how your users want to interact or could interact with you. That a complete mobile strategy requires a two-prong approach, and that is the channel in which they're most used to right now, which is a website channel, and where I get my services, and how that now trickles down into how do I use those on mobile devices. And from an application standpoint of what services make sense to go out to a mobile application. But the reality is that most companies or organizations will end up doing both. Again, from a user standpoint, I want to engage with you, right, the way that I choose. And that might be different every time I choose to engage with you, right? I might do it through an app one time and a web the next time, or vice versa. But giving those flexibility. I think the message that I wanted to leave today is that there are common components that can help you drive this. There are common content components that you can use that can work through both. There are common integration points to back-end systems that will help you work with both. There are common personalization and tagging or targeting components that help you to do both, to give you the best and most optimized experience for your citizens or your users, your employees, your customers, whoever that you are engaging with. And with that, I'll open it up to questions. And any questions there? Yeah?
If you look at the new CA.gov site, they have responsive design, but they also have a mobile site that goes on top of that. I think that's a good idea, or is that just seems kind of redundant?
I don't know the one specifically, so I'll talk in general terms. How's that? We have many customers that have completely done their sites and their mobile experiences with responsive web design. So they do not have it like a .m site anymore. Now, does that take a little bit more thought up front? Yeah, it does. But in the long run, it does. They have saved time, money, and productivity in doing it that way. It's a good question. And again, I don't know the one specifically, right? And I don't know what their challenges were. For some reason, they probably did it that way.
They have like a mobile portal for a bunch of different agencies. So, but their newest design is all responsive.
Yeah. And this is what, .gov?
CA.gov.
CA.gov. So there's a great one. Go out and test CA.gov, see responsive stuff. We have a lot of, I know this is a different industry, we have a lot of banks that do this, right? That use responsive design. And then all of IBM's infrastructure in the background that we've done today, the personalization, the content, the applications with WorkLight. And you can even use WorkLight together with responsive design, right? So the WorkLight becomes an application, but inside of that is driven by responsive techniques, which is kind of neat. Anyways, not to get drilled down to that too much. So, other questions? All right. Well, for Austin and myself, we appreciate you taking the time today and hope it was beneficial. And we hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you.